Welcome to the Essentially You podcast. Dr. Neeta, how are you doing today, girl?
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm doing well. Thank you.
And you look gorgeous. Look
Oh,
gorgeous. I love the hat.
stop. Thank you. Yes, I'm channeling you. And basically, this is the meaning of this is serve love. It actually has my motto on the back. So, serving love to you and your audience today.
I love that. Well, I know everyone is just like, I am receiving that. Where you shine, gosh, girl, all the blaze that you shine so bright. But I think one of the areas that when I think about you, I just like the word that comes to me is not only like charisma and energy and joy, but is bravery. And I think, every single one of us is looking to step into that, step into being brave to not only restart, reignite, but reemerge who we are meant to be. And this is still, I consider the start of the new year, 2022.
Yes.
And I have a feeling a lot of women are looking to really reignite and step into themselves. And that's what we're gonna roadmap that out for them today, because this is literally your zone of genius.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So let's talk into, because I know that there was probably a time where you didn't necessarily feel as brave, or there was a reigniting that you wanted to create for yourself. Can you talk a little bit about that transformation, kind of where you started and how you got here?
Where I've been. Yes. Oh, wow. Okay. The moment of time when I felt not as brave. So I think I'll probably start with that magical moment for me that sucked, but it also opened a magical portal to where we are today. And that was a decade ago, this past December would have been 10 years that I had left my tumultuous and crazy first marriage. And so there was that time where I was, and this was December 31st, you guys, New Year's Eve, a decade ago, that I was I was living a lie. I had, kind of like all of the material successes on the outside. I was married, and I had married because my background is Filipino and Indian. So I married an Indian man, making the family proud and happy. And I became a dentist. So checking off all the boxes and, living this so-called dream from the outside, had the 5-story home, if you include the rooftop, you know what I'm saying? But like all of the things, the first class travel, the just this ideal life that somebody would say, wow, she's doing it from the outside. And on the inside, I was so afraid. I was so scared. I was afraid that I would be judged because I let myself be in this dark relationship where I had lost myself. I had really no self-respect for myself because I was letting somebody treat me in that particular way. And of course, it was violent and it was just not a good situation. So on December 31st, there was that awakening for myself, literally looking in the mirror. It was the last time I was going to let him put his hands on me. And I said, okay, Neeta, what are you doing here? Like getting, and, tears down my face. And I had remembered a conversation that I had with one of my girlfriends not too long before that. And she was like, Neeta, you don't have to be in this. You can choose and make a different choice. And I was just so afraid. I was afraid of what society would think, because in our culture, Filipino and Indian, like you don't get divorced. And also my parents, I'd lost them at a young age. So I felt like this was kind of I was living the ghost of my parents, right? I wanted to make them proud. I wanted to be the good girl that got the good grades and all of the things. But in that moment, I needed to choose to be brave and really stepping out of the thing that scared me the most, which was, oh my gosh, what will people do if they found out that I lied to them? Am I a fraud? Am I a fraud to my whole team? And because I was a cosmetic dentist at the time, I had an office, I had a practice. It was, It was all of the things. I was very successful again on the outside, but on the inside, I was crumbling. I didn't know who I was. I had lost myself in every single sense. So, spiritual, emotional, mental, I was a wreck. And that moment, looking in the mirror, December 31st, was my first time that I was like, okay, I see the Neeta that needs to be loved. And the only person that's going to do it is me.
Mm.
Ooh.
Mm.
And so stepping out of that moment and literally shout out to my girlfriend who was with me and my brother who was with me, who I had confided in. Those were the only two people. And literally, I was able to pack a few things, but I left my home on that day. The story gets a little bit crazy, but I'm going to fast forward because I ended up leaving. But not only that, I did get a restraining order and then going and appearing before the judge and just all of these things for the very first time for somebody who is or was or is currently in a situation that is just rocking their world. For me, it was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that how to even do this thing. So appearing before the judge, you had to list all of these instances, and moment by moment, it was like giving me permission. Like, it's okay, you can share. It's okay. Even if you're going to get judged, this is your truth. To really own your truth when you're afraid of speaking or afraid of letting somebody down. I was honestly afraid of letting my family, who was so against divorce, down. But until and unless I actually made the choice to let everybody in and fall apart in all of the ways, that was when my awakening started. That was my moment of bravery, to see everybody and to show up in a way where I didn't have it all together. I wasn't this perfect dentist who had gotten all the grades and did all of the things and, was trying to be the good girl. I was just this woman who, in the most vulnerable time of her life, allowing herself to be seen and to be cared for. And that was when the first time, literally, I broke down, got to my knees and was just like, okay, this is me, this is who I am. And yes, I need support. And my family came together. And so it was also a time of reckoning, because for a whole decade before that, when I had lost my mom, my brother, and my father to medical diseases, I don't think I really grieved all of those losses as you would. I was a teenager at the time. And so going through a lot of losses between literally 16 and 19, they were so enormously difficult to just painful to bear. So I put everything into accolades, success, academia, and doing things for other people until I needed my own service and love back to myself.
That,
So
and I bet it's a defining time for you every year on the 31st of just remembering taking that first brave step. I'm guessing that you really had an opportunity then to just analyze everything, analyze all the decisions that you had made, probably automatically, probably because of the trauma and the shock of all of the loss you had, and just burying it in productivity.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And side benefits, girl, I mean, from the outside looking in, people were like, that looks good. There was probably some side benefits to that, at least, side benefits that we tell ourselves at the time. And in that reckoning of like kind of figuring out who you are, one, a woman with worth, a woman who is deserving of love and an equal partnership, and a woman who is deserving of a purpose that she loves. When was that defining moment for you too, when you decided that being a dentist was not the path? Not that you weren't successful at it, but it just wasn't the thing that fired you up.
Yeah. So you're right, it wasn't long after, because after that initial small brave step, it turned into multiple brave steps. And it was multiple brave steps of saying yes to support, saying yes to, I need help, and actually articulating, I need help, saying yes to meeting with people that were outside of medicine and outside of what my worldview was, and saying yes to becoming an angel investor. And I had no idea what the startup world looked like at all. Zero. But I was like, you know what? In order to heal my heart, I have to say yes to new experiences and different experiences because I wanted to completely reinvent myself. And the only way I knew how was go to networking events. This was like early on, right? And say yes to those coffee dates with people that looked up to me because perhaps they wanted to go into medicine or whatnot. I was very big on mentorship early on, and I even created what you would call your present day mastermind back in the day to just bring like-minded people together because I was so geeking out about how to have your best well-being. That's what I became so focused on. So much so that I created a little community around it. And also I was really good at creating communities because I lost my family, right? So that was like part of my DNA. And in that time, I realized two things. I realized, wow, I'm really good at connecting and I'm really good at really understanding where people are. And I think it's because I needed to see that in myself and I saw it so much in other people. And it led me into angel investing and the startup world and then mentoring and coaching startup founders. And that's how I moved from Chicago to the Bay Area. I literally dove into a ton of different modalities of healing and growth from psychedelics to, and plant medicine to all different kinds of therapies because I was literally on that journey, like I said, of saying yes to brave steps and things that weren't necessarily just talk therapy because that's what I grew up knowing. And that's all it was, okay, you're going to see a therapist your whole life because that's all there is. That's all my family around me knew about, right? We didn't know about growth or personal development or any other modalities of healing like bodywork, somatics, etc. And so that's what I immersed myself in, basically years of saying yes and years of being brave and just trusting, but also saying yes to working with different coaches and healers, which then inspired me into then becoming a coach. And literally, I decided it was after a plant medicine ceremony and after my first time saying yes to Burning Man, literally it was, you know what? I can probably do this and be this like serial entrepreneur, which I still am today. But this life as me as a dentist is not going to come with me. And so I needed to literally grieve the death of that, the loss of that, but also embrace what was to come. And I'll be honest, because Mariza, it's scary, right? We go to school for a really long time and we're validated for all of the things. And I'm like, that's what I knew. And I was so afraid I was going to let my colleagues down. I had a team of 15. I had doctors and surgeons that worked under me. I mean, it was a big practice. And all I knew was my soul is wanting more out of this world. And I don't know what that looked like. So when I said yes to leaving, selling my practice, I sold it to another, junior dentist that I'd hired. So it was the universe really had my back. He was like, all right, girl, you want to go? Here you go. Like he made it so easy in the seamless, transition. But again, I was scared because I'm like, here I am. Okay, I've always wanted to write a book, but I don't know how. I've always been a researcher because I was a psych major in college. And then, you're just like in that science world. So that's what I really took with me, along with, of course, business skills. But it was then in that wavelength of life where I'm like, okay, I'm just going to give myself permission to explore because I never was able to explore growing up. I was always taking care of people and grieving and then studying, for school and exams. So I never had the opportunity to really explore what it looked like. And so that's when I started exploring emotional health and mental health and emotional intelligence, particularly with leaders. And really, that's where my confidence grew and my bravery grew in terms of literally making my dream come true as an author. And then that's how I birthed my first book, Emotional Grit.
And I know you just finished writing your third one about a week ago or 2 weeks ago.
I sure did. It's my fourth one. but it's my second one solo. And I'm so excited about this one because it's really about human moments, and it's really about what it means to embrace the things that happen in our lives, the joyous, the chaotic, the messy, but all of the magic that's in between those moments. So that will be coming out shortly.
I love it. And I'm thinking, as I'm listening to your story, and I know so many, and all of us listening to the story, there's a lot of bravery there. You leaving a marriage, leaving what one would consider an extremely successful career, and then jumping into the abyss of what other people definitely don't have the bravery to jump into, right? Angel investing and coaching entrepreneurs, moving into the Bay Area, into Silicon Valley, and like into the eye of the storm of where a lot of that is going down. And then finding yourself, finding that voice of like, let me help people become their best self. So as women are thinking about like, gosh, I know that there's more for me. I know that there's a leap that I need to be taking, for women who are looking to restart or reignite. What do you recommend? How do you recommend getting started? Is it, how do we do that internal search? Or kind of look and see what it is we're looking to curate moving forward?
So I think it's one of the things that I'm just so proud of to date, because for the last 8 years, what I know for sure is when I was looking to, and honestly, the reinvention still happens, right? I just had my second baby not too long ago.
We're going to talk about motherhood in just a second, girl. Because yes, you are a mama of two now. And here I am, I'm a mama of one, you know what I'm saying? And it just, you are still making it, all of it, making it work on your terms.
And you make it work on your terms. And I think so. What I started doing, and this was 8 years ago, after I was fully immersing myself in all things growth and all of the conferences and the books and the therapies and the workshops and everything, what I literally consolidated was a practice that was really special for myself, that I decided to do no matter who was in my life, but really it was for me at the time. And it grew into something that I now call the Elevated Intention Planner. And what it is basically when you are ready to reignite, and let's say you're restarting your year and you want to just set the tone on what you are calling in, whether it's desires, call it manifestation, but really goal getting, but without burning out. I've literally created a whole planner for you, a planner for you.
Let's just reframe the goal setting without burning
out.
Without the burnout.
Without the burnout.
Yes.
Intention planning calendar for you. It's through 6 different categories that most of us will take advantage of. And really, actually, most of us will not even fully dive into, and they don't really know, but this is where it's at. And definitely you can get it for free at globalgrit.co/EYL. But it has been year after year one of the things that not only I do in the start of the year, but the middle, so midpoint check-in, and at the end of the year. And we go into different practices like your anchor words, as well as behavioral shifts that you want to call in, because a lot of times the habits that we have, and especially if you're a mom in this day and age where the kids are out of school, things are shut down, et cetera, all of the burnout that's mentally happening across the board, you need your own personal rituals to light you up. And that is what this planner is. It is goal getting, but with that intentionality that you're serving yourself first, nobody else. And so that's why I'm so glad that I can gift it to you all.
Yes. Here. Well, I just a little bit of a little mini story. I was on because I follow you on Instagram, girl. And I just love all the content that you put out. But I had noticed that you were talking about this and I was gravitating so hard. I was like, I've got to get this. And, I think it was just a couple of days ago and I knew we were going to have this conversation and I was hoping this was going to come up as well. But what's really interesting, one of my words this year is surrender. And I really feel like the universe has wanted me to really feel that this first 3 weeks of the year in particular. I I was like, oh, this is what surrender is. And so because we had been so sick and it had been a wild toads Mr. Ride since we moved in December, I normally sit down and not only do I goal set, but I map out, like I do a mind map of everything I'm going to do this year. And this, for the first time in over a decade, I have not done any of it.
Woo.
And so there has been, I have really this surrender of reconciling of like, gosh, why, there has got to be a reason why this hasn't happened for you. And then I saw your planner, and girl, I'm obsessed with these kind of planners. I am obsessed with goal setting. I'm obsessed. And it's just like, it felt like it was the universe saying, I didn't want you doing the ones you do all the time. I wanted you to do something new. I wanted you to do something that literally was connected to the anchor of surrender this year, that wasn't going to drive you into burnout, that wasn't going to be, although you probably were going to accomplish them, wasn't going to be as good, but it was going to be at a cost.
With ease, less stress,
Yes.
less overwhelmed.
So I saw your planner, and it's been on my goal was to download it by tomorrow. And so I just wanted to just speak into how freaking excited I am to use it hopefully this weekend or next week. It's my intention so I just wanted to share that story with you, because it just felt like it was literally meant to be. It was serendipitous. I was like, oh my God, she's created the thing that I think I've been always wanting from a lot of these beautiful goal setting experiences, but just hadn't been created that I knew of. And so I just want to say thank you.
Oh, thank you. That means so much. Honestly, that has been a labor of love for literally the last 8 years. And I've been able to get my goals every year, 100% of them. Some years it took longer, like the 2 babies, but they all manifested. And there are reasons for how to create that, which is how I take you all into a step-by-step. But you're not the only one that's given me that message, actually. Like, there's so many like professionals and other folks and entrepreneurs who are like, wait, can I get that too? Like, I need it as well. I'm like, all right, cool. Yeah. So we're doing something good.
Well, and I think you really speak into what is the most important here, at least for a lot of my audience, and definitely for me, is that so often we have these big goals, and oftentimes we're gritting through it with a cost. And we're pushing through, like, come hell or high water, I'm going to figure out a way to push through it. And hence why I do the work that I do. We destroy our bodies, and our hormones in all of that just gets so messy. And so I had been looking for something personally that was goal setting, that felt really good, and that lended to that flexibility and lended to the surrender of things and just allowing. And so I was so stoked. So I can imagine there are a lot of people who are just really feeling that is what they need right now. And honestly, it's really how we need to be operating. That is how we need to be operating. So I'm super stoked. I'm so glad. So we'll have the link in the show notes. I hope you guys are as excited as I am about getting this. Even if you had sat down with your goals this year, I highly recommend sitting down with this gorgeous planner, and it could potentially give you just a different level of insight and a way of operating that really feels. This is what my intention is about this guide. I'm like, I'm selling it, girl. I haven't even seen it.
No, I love it.
I already envision what it is,
It's everything that you're saying and more.
Okay, good.
Definitely. Well, and also we do talk about the words as well. And I think that, for you, calling in surrender, I think that's so beautiful. And it's one of those things that now we not only share with our online communities, but we also share it with our team members and our other teams of coaches, because we have, between my husband and I, we have several companies. And this is the goal setting that we create. But it's not just that. It's basically a ritual that you can actually plan on doing as a midpoint check-in throughout the year, or even when you're going through a different season of life, let's say motherhood
Mhm.
or transitioning, something new is happening, maybe a move. It's such a way to reground and re-establish yourself without the burnout. So, and it's really that connection back to yourself. So yes.
I love it. Well, I want to talk a little bit about the guide in relation to motherhood. As you had said that you had motherhood goals on the table, and just expanding out based on whatever was coming up. That took a little bit longer. Would you be open to sharing a little bit about
Absolutely.
that?
Yeah. So one of the categories, there's 6 categories, and
Mhm.
one of the categories is relationships. And I've now split them because relationships, you have relationships with your kids
Mhm.
and your immediate family, right? And then you also have those relationships with like your friends or girlfriends or just maybe your neighbors, people who aren't like as close, but maybe they're your buddies. And so I think for me, in that lens of relationship with children that I didn't have at the time when I was starting to, call these goals in, I needed to ask questions like who I needed to be as a mother. And that was the very first question. So who do you need to be if you are calling in motherhood? What projects do you need to let go of? And these are all questions that are in the planner. What do you need to let go of in order to allow space for you to enter into motherhood? What relationships, friendships, maybe relationships with your parents that you need to heal or repair or forgive? So it gets a little deep before you embark on this journey. And that's
Mhm.
just one piece of it, because like you said, it's all about the way we feel. So I can definitely put my left brain on this and say, tactically, here's what you do. But really, what do we want to embody? Who do we want to be as a mom? Meaning, how do we want to feel as a mother? Do I want to feel ragged, tired, and burnt out? Or do I want to feel like I'm thriving? I'm grateful and I'm radiating with joy as a mother. So, really planting the seeds in all of those aspects. And so that's basically one component of it. And then of course you have the other component of it, which is, all right, well, how many children do you want? How many
Mhm.
years apart do you want them to be? Right? So you get to kind of envision all of this out and really map it out. It's kind of like your blueprint. And that's why I call it elevate, because it's really elevating your thinking as well as your being in your becoming of your next chapter. I
Mm.
just feel like it's so sacred, as a sacred practice for women stepping into the portal of motherhood, because there's so many things that we think, okay, I want a baby so bad. Okay, great. I'm going to get into that one category. I said, 6 categories of your life. So the first one is your health and your overall well being, right? So your
Mhm.
health, okay, your fitness goals, where are you at? So these are all the questions that Dr. Mariza, you can answer. But then when we get into really the personal relationship, which is another category that we go into, your personal relationship, which is also your spiritual connection, your connection back to yourself. Well, where am I still doing things for other people? Where am I still self-sabotaging? And we get a little bit deeper there, right? Where am I still holding myself back? Where am I, saying yes to everything and not having any boundaries? And so this is where that planner comes in to really check you at the door and check in with okay, so you want to step into motherhood, but what are some of the shifts that you need to make? So then we get into, I said, words that we want to call in. So we kind of talked about that, but then also the shifts or the habits that you want to call in as well. So habits like, okay, are we going to still be drinking a glass of wine every single night? Nothing wrong with that. I'm doing it right now because mama of two. Hello. But there might be seasons where you probably might want to cycle out of that, right? So what habits, like perhaps going to bed a half hour early or not touching your phone for the first hour before you go to sleep and when you wake up in the morning. So what are some of those tiny behavioral shifts that can anchor you into this next becoming or this next chapter of your life that you're calling in?
I love this example. And I'm so grateful that you kind of walked us through a lot of things that people just don't even consider. And so, and this is applicable in whatever, stepping into motherhood, stepping into new endeavor,
Business
stepping into a
endeavors.
passion, into maybe it's a book, maybe it's writing a book. So what does that embody? And yeah, just getting into those deep, deep questions. I think this is how we really discover who we are wanting to step into, who we need to be to step into that new role. So I love that. I can't, girl, I can't now. I really can't wait. After I'm like, what do I have next after this? I'm gonna go download this guide like right now.
I love it. We'll do it together.
Okay, so tell me about emotional grit. Tell me about your first book. I want to know a little bit more about, because I know you've done so much research on this and you've helped so many amazing leaders and people around the world really hone in their emotional resilience and their emotional intelligence.
Yeah. And so emotional grit was really birthed out of my whole kind of reckoning with everything that I had gone through, right? All of my losses, kind of the emotional trauma of seeing both my parents died of cancer and then having my brother just all of a sudden, one day he passed away of an asthma attack. So having such a really big, overwhelming, losses, for me, it was like connecting the dots on my hero's journey of how I was seeing leadership at the time because I was a cosmetic dentist, but I was so fascinated on the ways in how people made decisions. And literally, that was my fascination, and how we could just have a little bit more empathy in the decisions that we were making as leaders and really taking charge of that, but coming from a place of connection and compassion than a place of decisiveness. And so that was kind of the impetus of my research, which then turned into this whole journey into emotional grit. And I use grit as an acronym to grow, reveal, innovate, and transform. So when somebody is really open to growing or something happens in their life, they're aware. They're like, oh, okay, yeah. So we can use the example of I want to have a baby. Okay, great. So then you may start taking into account how old you are or how old your parents were when they had you. So all of these things starting to pop up into your awareness. Maybe you're not taking care of yourself. So that's the growth factor, right? So you're in this area of self-exploration and discovery. And then we get into the reveal stage. And the reveal stage is all about accepting what is. So some may accept, okay, well, my parents had a few miscarriages, or my mom struggled with infertility, or I have aunts who had, X cancer, or, just accepting where you are. Or maybe I'm 46 years old and I don't know if babies are in the cards for me. So really accepting what is from a place of, again, love and compassion. And what now is it going to reveal about you because you've come to a place of love and acceptance of where you are at, right? And then we get into which is the innovate stage or the commitment stage. What do you need to do in order to shift or change, right? Innovate. And so that could be, well, maybe I'm not taking good care of myself, my body. I need to go and find somebody that balances my hormones. So Dr. Mariza, I need to schedule, a session with her. I need to, just do my whole checkup and really make a commitment to myself so that I can make the necessary steps happen. And this can be applied all across the board, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or just using that as an example. But finally, we get into transform, right? T is for transform. And that is, what are the action steps I'm going to take? And so that's really what emotional grit is in a nutshell, in terms of how we can apply grit into our own lives, and how do we build a little bit more emotional intelligence, or what I call emotional grit, when life happenings start to come up.
It's so powerful. I mean, we can use this in every facet of our life. So I'm glad we're still sticking with the same example though. So you're walking us through kind of what that looks like, for a big decision like stepping into motherhood, or what does that look like? How do we transform to get ready to that place? I love this. I love this so much. I think all of us can lend to having more emotional grit, having more emotional resilience. And I love the acronym so much. I'm glad it worked.
Oh, I know, me too.
I want to talk a little bit into resiliency, right? Because that's what we're talking before, is that transformation, having that emotional intelligence in case, life happens the way it happens. In some ways it doesn't always work out. We're talking about motherhood in general, just really quickly. Like, it's so funny as I moved through like what I prepared to become a mom, and then we got pregnant in November of 2019, and then lost that baby in January. And then, but just like there was like, I had a lot of amazing healers around me. And I don't know, like there was such a surrender at that time of like, something better still is coming. Like that was like, there's something coming down the way. I knew that was meant to be. And then I ended up getting pregnant in March of 2020. And then had Kingston, who I can hear literally right now.
Aw, hi,
And
Kingston.
and so there was that bounce factor, right? That resilience. And my husband, and everyone takes on grief so differently, and I don't know. I just knew there was a reason for it. I was preparing for something even more, preparing for this other little being to come into play. But I knew that I had this emotional resilience, this resiliency to kind of bounce back. And you call it the bounce factor. Talk to me a little bit
Yes.
about the bounce factor, and because it's one thing to have an intention, have a goal, have a map of how you think it's going to look, and then, but we know that things shift. We know that it's either going that way or something even better still, right? For the
Right.
best and good for all of us.
Well, and I think that, so you bring up such a good point, because and I'm so sorry that happened. Like, for anyone that is going through miscarriages and kind of, I know it could be a very isolating time. And so I'm so glad that Mariza, you're talking about it. But in terms of the bounce factor, it's super sexy. It's something that we explore in my upcoming book. But I like to give reference and context around the bounce factor, because that is what comprises your resiliency. And I call it your audacious resilience, because when things happen, like a loss like that, an unexpected outcome that you didn't plan for, maybe a failed test, or you didn't get into the college that you wanted, or you worked so hard and you try to take the MCAT once, twice, three times, and it just didn't work out for whatever reason. Or now you're like trying to figure out what is happening to your body, and you've done all of the diets and you're getting so frustrated you can't still lose that weight, right? So whatever it is, there is that ability to bounce and bounce back even faster than before. But we have to take into account four different things. And the first thing is your upbringing. Your upbringing. So we cannot change your upbringing. So what were you exposed to? Did you have helicopter parents? Did you have parents that didn't really care about you? Did you have a lot of trauma or violence in your household, where you would probably have a higher bounce factor versus somebody that had helicopter parents and wasn't allowed to do anything? And and we're seeing this right now, because I'm like, oh, okay, I'm like hovering over my kids because I want to protect them and I'm their source of safety. But then also I remember like how I grew up, and I'm like, oh, it comprises your bounce factor, your ability to be resilient, right? So that's number one. Number two is your current environment. How often are you stepping into situations that are going to test you,
Yeah, I was gonna say.
that are like out of your comfort zone,
that are
that you're
risky,
like,
that require bravery.
that require bravery and require you to step out fully, whether it's having a difficult conversation or speaking how you really feel. Perhaps it's online or wherever, and not being afraid of getting shut down, right? So how are you testing yourself in those ways, your current environment? How are you exposing yourself to what I would call positive stressors? Because most of the time, and we see this with kids all the time, right? If we try to fix everything for them, if we're going to try to pick them up every time they're going to try to stand up by themselves, how are they going to learn how to walk by themselves, right? We're not always going to be there. It's the same thing. And the third is your own awareness. Are we keeping a blind eye to some of the things that distract us, some of the things that cause us fear? Are we just looking the other way when we should be actually looking directly and saying, this is what scares me. I am so afraid of telling him or her the truth. I'm so afraid of letting them down, right? Being aware of what is, and that self-awareness is huge. And then finally, the last piece of this, of your bounce factor, is your emotional capacity. So your ability to handle when you don't get your way, when things don't go as planned, when you fail that test, when you get dumped unexpectedly, when you lose your job.
When your kids are brought home from school.
When your kids are brought home from school, not just once, but
yeah,
10 times in a row. Do you lose your shit right away? Are you able to self-regulate? It's all about your self-regulation and your ability to have the depths and go into the depths of your emotional capacity. So that those four things comprise your bounce factor.
I love it. I'm so excited for this new book in particular. I know it's not out anywhere.
No, it's not.
Near.
It's not going to be out for a while. So we'll come back. We'll do another one.
We'll do another one and we'll go deeper. What I'm really excited for everyone to go and check out is definitely Emotional Grit. I think every single one of us can benefit from just your incredible wisdom there. And girl, the guide is what is up. It's such a great time right now. Anytime is a great time for this beautiful masterpiece that you are gifting with. And so I'm going to have the link in the show notes. Anything else you want us to know before we go? This has been so powerful.
Yes. Oh, wow. We all have the capacity to be brave. And one question that I have for you all is, what does it mean to be brave to you? And that's a question that I ask on our new show. It's called The Brave Table. So hopefully you can come by and have a seat at our brave table and continue the work of being brave.
Congratulations on the getting ready to launch your podcast. It is a brave feat to do so. And I want to just honor you there because I'm so excited. Like we need more of your gift in the world. And so I'm so glad that you are bringing it to the podcast world, my love. And I'm really excited for the opportunity to get to be on it. So
yes, I know I get to learn from you in all of the podcasting ways. It's a whole world.
I got you. We should plan a call for that.
Seriously, you're amazing. Thank you so much for all of this.
Thank you. See you soon, honey.